Long ago, in the early days of the Massachusetts colony, a man named Colonel Pyncheon was very powerful and proud. He wanted a piece of land owned by a poor man named Matthew Mall. Mall lived simply and built a small house on the land. But the colonel, greedy for more, accused Mall of witchcraft during the time of the Salem witch trials. Mall was arrested, tried, and executed. Before his death, he cursed Colonel Pyncheon and his family. He shouted, "God will give him blood to drink." The colonel took Mall's land and built a grand mansion with 7 gables, 7 pointed rooftops on it. The house was huge and beautiful, but filled with shadows. On the very day of the housewarming feast, Colonel Pyncheon was found dead in his chair, blood on his throat. From then on, people whispered that the house was cursed. The Pyncheon family kept the mansion, but for generations misfortune followed them. Wealth slipped away, and strange deaths happened. Neighbors said the ghost of Matthew Mall still haunted the house, and his curse lived on. And so, the House of the Seven Gables stood for nearly 2 centuries, a place of mystery, gloom, and whispered fears. In later years, the house was home to Hepzibah Pyncheon, an old, lonely woman. She lived in the dark mansion with little money. Her only company was a gentle pet chicken, and her memories of better days. Once, the Pyncheons were rich, but now Hepzibah had no choice but to earn her living. With great sadness, she decided to open a tiny shop on the ground floor of the grand old house. She sold gingerbread, thread, and other small items to neighbors. Hepzibah was proud and shy. She did not like showing her face to strangers because her eyesight was poor and she scowled without meaning to. People often thought she looked angry, though inside she was kind. Opening a shop felt humiliating to her, but she had no choice. Every morning she raised the shop's little wooden sign and hoped customers would come. She feared being laughed at, but she kept going for survival. The house felt heavy with history. Yet Hepzibah carried on, living among its shadows. One bright summer day, a young girl named Phoebe Pyncheon arrived at the house. She was Hepzibah's cousin, full of youth, beauty, and cheer. Unlike the gloomy house, Phoebe's presence brought sunshine. Phoebe offered to help Hepzibah with the shop. Customers liked Phoebe at once because she smiled kindly and spoke warmly. What Hepzibah did awkwardly, Phoebe did with ease. Soon the shop was busier, and Hepzibah felt a little relief. Phoebe was not only helpful, but also gentle with her cousin. She decorated the house with flowers, opened curtains to let light in, and sang while she worked. The house, once silent and dark, felt alive again. Even the neighbors noticed. They said, "The old house looks brighter these days." Phoebe's heart was full of kindness. Though she saw the sadness of Hepzibah's life, she did not pity her, but instead offered quiet strength. Hepzibah began to feel that maybe, just maybe, life could still hold some happiness. Living hidden away in the house was Hepzibah's brother, Clifford Pyncheon. He had been gone for many years, imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. Now, he was a broken man, nervous, gentle, and almost childlike. Clifford had once loved beauty, art, and joy, but his long imprisonment left him fragile. He could not face the world, so he stayed inside the dark house, away from curious eyes. Hepzibah cared for him tenderly, protecting him from pain. When Clifford first met Phoebe, he was shy, but Phoebe's brightness touched him. He felt safe in her presence. Her gentle ways reminded him of the beauty he had lost. Slowly, Clifford began to smile again, though weakly, whenever Phoebe sat with him. Still, shadows remained. Clifford often seemed haunted by the past, and he trembled when Judge Jaffrey Pyncheon's name was mentioned. The curse of the family had not ended. Judge Jaffrey Pyncheon, another cousin, was a wealthy and powerful man. Outwardly, he appeared kind, smiling, and respectable. But behind his polished manners hid greed and ambition. He wanted the old house, and whatever fortune might still lie within it. The judge often visited Hepzibah, pretending concern for Clifford, but Hepzibah and Clifford feared him. They believed he cared nothing for family love, only for money and power. Judge Pyncheon reminded everyone of Colonel Pyncheon, the founder of the house, proud, ambitious, and relentless. His presence filled the old house with unease. Clifford trembled whenever the judge came. Hepzibah, too, felt his visits were more like threats. Only Phoebe, young and innocent, could not yet see the full danger behind his smile. But the shadows of the Pyncheon curse grew darker whenever Judge Pyncheon's footsteps echoed in the house of the Seven Gables. Life in the mansion was a mix of darkness and light. Hepzibah and Clifford lived under heavy sorrow, while Phoebe brought joy. She became the heart of the household, balancing the sadness with her cheer. Hepzibah often worried about the family curse. Clifford spoke of it in whispers. The judge, too, seemed part of its shadow. Yet Phoebe believed kindness and love could heal even the deepest wounds. A frequent visitor was Holgrave, a young lodger living in one of the gables. He was a daguerreotypist, early photographer, thoughtful and idealistic. Holgrave and Phoebe became friends. He admired her warmth, while she listened to his dreams of a better future, free from the burdens of the past. Though the house was old and gloomy, new life stirred quietly inside it, through Phoebe's presence and Holgrave's hope. One evening, Holgrave told Phoebe a story about the Mall family, whose land had been stolen centuries ago by Colonel Pyncheon. The Malls, said Holgrave, always seemed connected to the Pyncheon's fate. Some even believed the Mall bloodline had a strange power. Phoebe listened closely, realizing the curse was not only a tale, but a history written into the very walls of the house. She wondered if the family could ever escape the sins of the past. Clifford, overhearing part of the story, wept softly. He felt trapped by both the past and the judge's looming power. Hepzibah comforted him, but her own heart was heavy. The house seemed to groan with its secrets. Its gables creaked, and its windows looked out with haunted eyes, as if the building itself remembered the curse of Matthew Mall. One fateful day, Judge Pyncheon came to the house again. His tone was stern, and he demanded to speak with Clifford. He wanted Clifford to sign papers and give him rights to the property. Hepzibah refused. She stood firm, protecting her brother. But the judge grew colder, more commanding. His mask of politeness fell, and his greed showed through. Clifford, terrified, shrank into silence. The judge accused him of weakness and madness. Hepzibah tried to defend him, but the judge's voice thundered in the gloomy parlor. The house seemed to hold its breath. The curse of the past was about to strike again. Later, when Hepzibah and Clifford returned to the room, they found Judge Pyncheon sitting in a chair, silent, unmoving. At first, they thought he was waiting, but soon they saw he was dead. His face was fixed in a strange smile, but life was gone. It was a chilling sight. The powerful judge, who had seemed unstoppable, was now lifeless in the house he had tried to control. Some whispered that the curse of Mall had claimed him, just as it once struck Colonel Pyncheon. For Hepzibah and Clifford, the judge's death was both shocking and freeing. The heavy shadow he cast was gone. Still, they feared what people would think. Would the world blame Clifford again, as before? The house was silent, except for the whisper of the curse. With the judge gone, a strange peace entered the house. Clifford and Hepzibah, once so burdened, felt lighter. They decided to leave the old mansion for a while, to breathe the air of freedom outside its walls. The death of the judge also brought news. His wealth and property now passed to Clifford. At last, after years of sorrow, Clifford was no longer poor or powerless. The curse seemed to have broken its hold. Phoebe, too, felt joy at this change. She saw her cousins step into a new life. Holgrave watched quietly, knowing that history had finally shifted. The gloomy house, long ruled by fear, now opened to hope. As days passed, Phoebe and Holgrave grew closer. Holgrave confessed his love for her. He told her he belonged to the Mall family line, the same family cursed by the Pyncheons long ago. Yet instead of revenge, he wished for peace and love. Phoebe, with her gentle heart, accepted him. Their union was like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. The old curse of hatred between the families could end with love. The house itself seemed to sigh with relief, its shadows lifted. Flowers bloomed again in the garden. Laughter returned to its rooms. The story of sorrow was turning into a story of renewal. The house of the Seven Gables had stood for 200 years, heavy with sin, greed, and curses. But in the end, love, kindness, and truth broke the chains of the past. Hepzibah found peace. Clifford was free at last. The judge, who sought only power, had fallen. And the union of Phoebe and Holgrave promised a brighter future, where old wrongs could heal. The story reminds us, greed and pride bring destruction. The sins of ancestors can haunt us, but love can set us free. Even in the darkest house, one ray of light can change everything. And so, the House of the Seven Gables stood not as a place of gloom, but as a home of hope. Its curse finally ended.